Good morning and welcome to Big Bets on Campus Live, presented by BetMGM. It's 10:30 a.m. Eastern, and this is the conference tournament betting live show. I'm Stuckey, and joining me, as always, are the crew from the three-man league, Matty Cox, Kai McKeon, and Jim Root. I do want to remind everyone to make sure you download the award-winning Action Network app. I also want to say that Big Bets on Campus is presented by BetMGM. Use bonus code ACTION when signing up to get $1,000 paid back in bonus bets. If you don't win your first bet, terms and conditions do apply. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, we got a lot to get to today. We'll start with our best bets in just a second. We'll close with one final best bet. And then we'll get to, of course, all of the Power Conference tournament finals. Before we get into it, let's take a look at the leaderboard. Kai in the lead, as we're all just middling right around 500. I do want to go to Jim first. Jim, are you over the loss of Utah Valley yet?
No, not at all. That Utah Valley plus 200 was my best bet on our conference tournament preview. They're up 17 with 6.5 left. Thought that one was in great shape. And then the collapse of all collapses. Everything you can do wrong down the stretch of a game. Turnovers, missed free throws, bad fouls. It's gonna stick with me, Stuck. I'm hurting on that one.
Yeah, it's gonna happen in March. You're gonna have just some complete meltdowns. I've never seen anything quite like that. Up 58-36 at the under 16 timeout. Miss 6 of 8 free throws, give up a 4-point play, up 3, and then finally miss a layup. Absolute pain. All right, let's get into our best bets. Matty Cox, it's time for all of us to get up to over 500 on the season. Well, except Kai, our leadoff hitter, up once again. Who are you rolling with today?
Yeah, we're going to be highly leveraged on the red and blue, but we're taking Penn plus 2.5. Stuckey, not to spoil your pick, but I'll save you some of the points as I assume you'll be making. Just a great spot here. Coming off a week off of rest and preparation with the revenge looming, very, with so much conviction in their minds. The lost to Princeton in overtime, blew a 20-point lead. Jordan Dingle goes off in the first half. He has a terrible second half. It's a team that hasn't beaten Princeton since 2018. It seems like Princeton's had their number, but I just think they get the monkey off their back today. It just feels like a great spot. Home court should be basically negligible, even though this game is at Princeton's home gym. Just played there, with everything on the table today. I think Penn gets it done. So I'm taking the 2.5 courtesy points here. I think they went out.
I'll share my points in just a second, but let's go to the leader in the clubhouse. Kai, what are you bringing today?
I'm going to the MAC title game. Kent State is going to be my pick here, right around a pick, +1, -1, wherever you find it. Defense wins championships, and that's Kent State's advantage here. They're the number one defense in the MAC. They're top 40 nationally. Toledo, they're 268th defensively. Not quite as good. In the only matchup this season, Kent State won by 12. They crushed the glass, grabbed 44% of their misses. They held Toledo's offense, which is very, very good, to under 1 point per possession. And they're led by arguably the best player in the MAC. That's Sincere Carey. Guards win in March. Defense wins in March. I'm going Kent State.
Yeah, Kent State can really get up into your shirt. And you saw the vulnerability that Toledo has on the glass with Ohio yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
If Ohio could have just made a shot or two, especially early on, they would have been in much better shape. But yes, Kent State's defense is certainly suffocating like that one. Mr. Root, what do you got today?
I can't wait until later to talk Power Conference. I'm getting right into it now. I'm going Kansas -1.5, -2. I think is more what's out there in the market now. But I still think the absence of Timmy Allen catches up to this Texas team. They were able to beat our Horned Frogs yesterday, Stuckey. That was another heartbreaker to see them go out. But this Kansas team is really defending right now, and it's another kind of revenge spot the way you guys discussed Penn. Last game of the regular season, Kansas had everything clinched, nothing to gain. They got smoked on the road. It was kind of an everything that can go wrong does. DeJuan Harris was 1 for 10 inside the arc, and he missed like layup after layup in that game. I expect a much better performance out of him today. And I just, even without Bill Self, Norm Roberts knows what to dial up with this Jayhawks team. They've been really impressive in this event. I think they take the Big 12 title today in a very pro Kansas crowd in KC.
Yeah, Jim, you mentioned TCU yesterday, get into a little bit of a half court grinder with Texas. And is that does the ceiling kind of come down a little bit without Lampkin? Are they going to miss him when they get into, those half court grinders? The Texas post was unbelievable all game, but is that where they're really going to miss Lampkin?
Yeah, I think so. They shot like 32% inside the arc against this Texas defense. They need those offensive rebounds to raise the floor for them offensively. And without Lampkin, they're playing a little smaller. They're not quite the same half court identity. I do think that is a major concern with him out if you slow them down.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be matchup dependent. So TCU's path is certainly going to be interesting, because if they can get a bunch of teams that are going to allow them to get out and transition and play a little quicker, I think they'll be okay. But yeah, those types of games are certainly where they're going to miss Eddie Lampkin. I already alluded to my best bet. I'm going to go with Penn here. Led off the show last week with a Penn Ivy Madness future. So going to lead off the show this week with a bet on Penn. They were here last week in the same gym. They led by 20, speaking of meltdowns, before eventually losing in overtime. Had complete control of that game. I like the matchup for them. They won't get turned over here, which is a little bit of a weakness for Penn. I'm going to go with the more experienced team and the best player on the court in Dingle. I hope Penn gets a chance to dance. All right, let's move on to our conference title games. We're going to start with the Big 12 that Jim already talked about a little bit. Kansas here is a small favorite in Kansas City. Matt Cox, let's go through the order again. What do you got here?
I lean toward Texas. Covered 4 straight. They're really starting to tighten up their defense. Dylan Diso has been a complete revelation. Yesterday had another big game, contributing on both ends. But I think what he brings to the defensive side of the floor just really elevates this defense from really, really good to elite. Jim mentioned the absence of Timmy Allen. I think they will miss him. But I think just the way DCU's playing, Bishop off the bench gave them big minutes. I think Kai said this in our other show yesterday. They are deep at that position, right? So, and when you couple in the fact that Kansas has McCullough dealing with his back issues, they're not overly deep either. So it's a disadvantage that Texas has that I don't think Kansas can really negate, so to speak. So I actually lean Texas here to ride the current momentum. I just like the way they're playing.
Kai, you on the same page?
I'm going Kansas. I trust them more. I agree with Jim. Norm Roberts knows the plan. He's been there for over a decade. We wish Bill Self all the health in the world in the hospital, but Norm Roberts has this under control. Being in Kansas City certainly helps. Sprint Center, they're familiar. They're going to have a pretty nice home crowd there. And their defense has been awesome this season. 6th in the country right now. Number 1 2-point percentage defense in the Big 12. They lock down the paint. Their freshman big's been really impressive. I like Kansas here.
Yeah, Jim, you already mentioned you like Kansas. I would lean Kansas as well. I was going to be concerned about their legs, right? They don't have a lot of depth. McCullough's injured, but they didn't really have to exert a ton of energy in the first 2 games, even without a deep bench. So that's not as much of a concern. My one concern would be if they get into a close game, is that where they miss Bill Self halftime adjustments, adjusting, in the second half? Jim, is there any concern there with Kansas?
A little bit, sure. But as Kai mentioned, Norm Roberts has been there for a decade. He's generally going to be on the same page with what Bill Self is thinking. And it's a really veteran team of the group that they're playing. Grady Dick, the only freshman out there. They're not really tapping in much into Rice and Uday. I think they'll be able to handle that. But it's a minor concern, I think.
All right, good stuff there. Let's move on to the Garden and talk a little Big East Conference Championship between Marquette and Xavier after 2 upsets yesterday in, Xavier's case, pretty convincing fashion. Matty Cox, what are you seeing here in the Big East final?
Yeah, I couldn't get off the fence on the side. I kind of like the over, though, if you have to get involved on this one. Both of the regular season meetings between these two actually play a little slower than you might expect. The most recent was a 69-68, kind of a typical old throwback Sean Miller type of game But we know the Xavier team likes to run. We certainly know Marquette likes to run. They're coming off that slog against UConn yesterday. I think they kind of, released themselves from that slow-mo, stuck in the mud feeling, and they get out and gallop today. Just amazing to think that Sule Boom and Tyler Kolek are the engines of two of the top offenses in the country. But that's where we're at. I think those two guys will help carry this over. Slight lean to Xavier, I guess, on the side if I had to choose, but nothing profound there.
All right. Expecting points in the Garden. Kai, how about you?
I'm going Marquette, and I've used this term a lot to describe them, but they are the most connected team in the country. Offensively, they move the ball so well. They clearly like each other. They trust each other. And defensively, while their metrics aren't fantastic, they can cause a lot of issues for teams, especially when they go full court. So many athletes, so much length on defense. I'm just impressed by this team overall. Watching them against UConn yesterday kind of solidified for the 10th time just how awesome they really are. So I'm going Marquette here.
Jim?
Yep, in lockstep with Kai here. I'm Marquette. Despite Xavier's impressive reinvention of itself without Fremantle, they've become a little slower, more defensive, and they're going to probably dominate the offensive glass between Hunter and Nunji here. But I still like Kai said, Marquette's connectivity on offense. The ball movement is as good as any in the country. Kolek is a maestro. He's basically become college Steve Nash at this stage. It's ridiculous how good he is. I prefer Shaka as an underdog, but laying only 2 points here, I still do lean the Golden Eagles' way against a somewhat still shorthanded Xavier team.
Yeah, I have been impressed with the response of Xavier without Fremantle, but I would agree. Just the energy that this Marquette team can bring in these big spots, it's just hard to match. And I think that ultimately might be the difference. And yeah, Kolek is playing just out of his mind. He is super fun to watch. So I am going to agree there. All right, let's go to the night slate and talk the Pac-12 championship. And this is the matchup that most expected. And it's the rubber match between Arizona and UCLA. This game is sitting right around a pick. Basically, you just got to pick the winner. Maddie, who you rolling with?
I like Arizona. Just the fact that UCLA's injuries are going to slowly catch up with them. Defensively is where they miss. We talk about Bona and Clark. I think that's where the impact of those two will be felt the most. And similar to my take about Kansas, it's not a really deep team. It really isn't. And you look on the other side of the coin here, Arizona, the way that they're playing, specifically their guards, man. I mean, Courtney Ramey, Cedric Henderson, they're getting some balance from their perimeter. And that's always been the question mark with Arizona, right? Is if they can get enough consistent guard play, even Kirk Kriisa dealing with that shoulder issue, they have enough there to trust those guards. And I think that balance is what unlocks the ceiling for Arizona with how good their bigs have been playing. I think Zona is just a more complete, better formed team right now. I lean their way at the number.
Yeah, we'll see. Speaking of the guards, we'll see if Bill Walton is yelling again at Kriisa to stop shooting threes with his hurt shoulder. I think he finally hit one, but he started 0 for 6, and you could tell. I mean, some of them.
He's going to shoot left-handed today. He's going to shoot lefty, southpaw.
Some of them weren't even close to the rim. So we'll see how he performs tonight. There's certainly injury concerns on both sides. Kai, Arizona or UCLA?
I'm going Arizona as well. I agree that this is where Jalen Clark's injury finally matters for UCLA. They got by Oregon and Colorado. Didn't look great the entire time, by the way, against both those teams. I'm not sure it works out here against Arizona's collection of wings. They're just too good. And the front court edge was there before. It's especially there now with Tubelis and Ballo there. I like Arizona. Give me the Cats.
Yeah, should also be an amazing crowd and atmosphere for this game. All right, we got 2 for Arizona. Jim, you gonna make it 3?
Let's make it 3. Oh yeah, going with Arizona as well. No Bona, I think is a real problem here because of Arizona's front line. It can really work them inside. Double machines that Ballo and Tubelis are, I think, will be a real problem for this version of UCLA. It's kind of young and experienced green there for UCLA, and I trust Arizona more at this point, despite Jaquez and Campbell's presence on the UCLA side.
Yeah, speaking of UCLA, Jim, you said, look, I think I asked you maybe last week or the week before, name 3 teams that you would feel comfortable with going with the Final Four. And you mentioned UCLA is one of those 3. Now with the injuries, how concerning are they for the Bruins from a broader perspective as we approach the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, it becomes a lot more matchup based and draw based in the tournament for them. Like they were pretty close to write them in Final Four, no matter what region they were in for me previously. Now it's all right. Is there a 2 or a 3 seed in their region that I trust more, pending whether UCLA is a 1 or a 2? But if there's somebody else I trust more that maybe has another matchup edge potentially in the paint, like Arizona today, I may end up going elsewhere just with the limitations that UCLA now has.
Yeah. And I'm going to make it a clean sweep. I'm going to go with Arizona as well. I'll echo a lot of the sentiments you guys have already mentioned. I think the injuries are going to catch up with UCLA here. Arizona is also an excellent pick and roll defense, which is important in this particular matchup. It won't be easy. Those seniors will make it tough for UCLA, but I think in the post is where Arizona is going to have just a massive advantage, especially if UCLA gets in foul trouble, as is what happened in the first matchup. So I think Arizona gets this done as long as Mr. Kriset doesn't, shoot 8 to 10 threes, which hopefully he does not do. All right, let's move on to our final conference championship game before we get to another best bet. Let's go to the ACC, which has been fairly chalky. It has not treated the bubble teams well, but we are left with Duke and Virginia. Duke is a small favorite here. Matty, your Dukies are rolling. You think they get it done again today?
Yeah, it's about the only thing I've gotten right consistently handicapping the sport the last week and a half. I'm just going to keep riding this Duke train. Different team, offense and defense as well. I think the end of the regular season, you saw their defense start to come together. But then in the ACC tournament, their points per possession just off the chart. 96 against Pittsburgh. They had 85 against Miami. Now, those aren't exactly the vaunted defenses that we've seen around college basketball, but still, just the way this team's playing with their guards, especially driving the bus. Kyle Filipowski obviously dealing with that bum ankle. Didn't look all the way healthy, but looked still effective enough. And again, I just think they're so deep that even if they have one of these, 1 or 2 guys who are banged up, injured, or just have an off night, they have another guy that can step right in there. Coach S starting to, I think, put the pieces together here. I'm riding with Duke.
Yeah, I've been super impressed with Duke. I mean, I didn't really believe in this team as little as 2 weeks ago, just because of the quality of the competition, and I was questioning just the overall depth and quality of the ACC, but I've been really impressed, especially with their defense. They're making significant strides on that end, so they might be peaking at the right time despite a down year in the ACC. Kai, what are you seeing here?
Yeah, I'm going Duke as well. Their current form right now is scary. They're playing their best basketball by a long shot, won 8 straight games. It's almost like having 3 top 5 freshmen is really important, and it gets better as the season goes on. And I'm just not really buying Virginia right now, especially without Ben Vanderplas. I think they're vulnerable. I think Duke kind of crushes the boards today. I'm going Blue Devils.
Jim, you said that this Duke team maybe is giving similar vibes to UNC last year. You rolling with the Blue Devils again?
Yeah, I'm going with them too. As these guys mentioned with the current form, I think that matters. This Virginia team without Vanderplas maybe is more stout inside. Shedrick has actually given them some solid interior defense. But Matt, if this is a limited version of Filipowski, who's 11 for 11 from 2 in the ACC tournament, then that's pretty good. 17 and 11 yesterday, 8 for 9 from the field. Seems like he's relatively sharp, and the guards are playing well. It's not a great matchup for Duke in terms of being forced to take threes. Virginia Packline is going to try to keep them on the perimeter, and that's not really Duke's MO. But I think there's cracks in this Virginia defense. It's not the same elite unit of most years. They just need to avoid turnovers. Reese Beekman's hands are going to be everywhere. Take care of the ball to Mr. Roach and Mr. Proctor, and I think Duke -2 is a solid bet.
Yeah, I agree. Let's make it another clean sweep here. Duke's going to have to make some threes, but I think that they're playing well enough right now that they can hit enough to get this done. And as I mentioned, I think the defense is significantly improved. So yeah, I'm going to roll with the Blue Devils as well. All right, before we get to our final best bet, I do want to promo our watch party for the Elite Eight. If you're in the Jersey or New York area, or someone even reached out to me, so they're flying in for this, go to actionnetwork.com, where you can check out my Twitter or Action Network's Twitter for our watch party for the link to RSVP. It's free. You can come watch the Elite Eight games on that Saturday in Hoboken at Mad Hatter with myself, Chris Raybon, Maria Marino, and of course, the one and only Chad Millman. So make sure you check that out and RSVP on the link. All right, we do have one final best bet to get to. One last time through the batting order. The next time we do this, Maddie, we will have a bracket, but let's close out strong. What do you got?
Taking Howard, going to the Scope out there in Norfolk. Just this team is different with Steve Settle back. He's their big guy up front. It's been a team that's been built on fast, perimeter guard play under Kenny Blakeney, but they need some resistance at the rim. I think Saddleback has basically provided that. Their only real swoon this season coincided with him being out of the lineup. Catching 2 against a really good Norfolk team that's playing pretty damn close to home. I still like Howard here, so roll with the Bison +2.
Yeah, I was really impressed with Howard in that second meeting. You figured Norfolk was really going to be up for it the way that the first meeting played out, and Howard won in convincing fashion. Norfolk is playing close to home, but we'll see how that plays out. Kai, one final best bet. What do you got?
Yep, I'm being a homer, and I'm going Mizzou. Mizzou +9.5 against Alabama. They can shoot. They have athletes. They play incredibly hard. I think the Tigers just keep this one close, though I do fear Alabama may have rediscovered its mojo last game. I just think Mizzou works hard and can shoot enough and make this an up and down high variance type of game.
Jim?
Yeah, I'm going Marist here. Feels like a hold your nose bet a little bit in the MAC championship. Getting 15 points against Iona, who has been a juggernaut lately. But Marist is rolling through this tournament too. Patrick Gardner has been unstoppable up front. We'll see how he holds up against the Nelly Jr. Joseph front line of Iona. Osborne Shima also in there, giving them plenty of size. It's just too many points in what I think is going to be a relatively low possession game. Look what happened yesterday with Iona, played like a 60 possession game against Niagara. I think Marist is going to aim for the same thing. Hopefully stay inside that number. Just feels like too many points for me here. Marist +15.
Yeah, definitely hold yours. But Marist in the championship is shocking, by the way.
Yes.
But yeah, they're peaking at the right time. We'll see if they can pull off a little magic and give Iona a scare. I'm going to go with UAB here. I think that their half-court offense is just playing too well, and Jelly Walker will carry them over the finish line. And by the way, I think both of these teams, if UAB wins, will get into the tournament. And I hope, for UAB's sake, that they don't get matched up. I was looking at this the other day. Not enough people, I think, talked about it. UAB last year got Houston in the first round on a 5-12. Houston finished the number 2 team on KenPom. Number 2 in the country. They had to play them in the first round as a 12 seed. So I hope UAB wins today. And if they do, they get a little better matchup in the first round. But I think Walker will cook today and the Blazers will get to the finish line. All right, good stuff there. I do want to remind everyone that Big Bets on Campus is presented by BetMGM. Use the bonus code ACTION when signing up to get up to $1,000 paid back in bonus bets if you don't win your first bet. Terms and conditions do apply. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Also want to remind everyone to make sure you download the award-winning Action Network app. You can find all of our bets there, in addition to an abundance of data and content for today's slate and beyond. Also, make sure you check out Big Bets on Campus podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. We will have just a ton of content coming out over the next week, starting with right after when the bracket is released tomorrow night. Thanks to all of you for tuning in. Thanks to the guys from the 3-Man Weave, as always, for joining me. Thanks to our audio and video teams on the back end. Good luck with all of your wagers today and enjoy the final weekend of the madness before we get our bracket. We'll see you this week. Cheers.